Hello, my name is Rosie Custer, and I am here to start off our Arts in the Park season that is sponsored by the City of Edwardsville. Our first session is going to be making our own personal sketchbook journals. We're going to be spending the season focusing on nature and spending some time outside because, let's be honest, we're all tired of being stuck inside. So we are going to start with our paper. We have some white and a yellow piece, which will be our covers. And then I'm going to use a stick. This is going to actually hold our sketchbook together, and a rubber band. So the reason why we are starting off with our sketchbook is because I'm going to show you 3 different ways of doing that. So first, grab your rubber band. You're going to focus on putting it through the holes. So I'm going to go from the underneath and poke it through. Sometimes that can be tricky. It gets stuck on your finger. You just got to roll with it. I'm going to next put the stick through that first hole. You should have enough that you have a lot of stretch, because the whole point is it's going to hold it together, so it's going to be tight. The tricky part is getting it through this second hole right here. I always have to stretch it and kind of bend my paper. Pull it through. I stick my finger through it because that helps me, and voila. Now we have a cover, a front and a back, and we have inside pages for us to draw with. And the good thing about putting a binding on it like this rather than just stapling is that you can take it apart and add pages. So these sketchbooks can have like up to 50 pages as long as you got a big enough rubber band. So we're starting with 10, which front and back gives you 20 sheets. So today we're going to be talking about 3 different styles of making a sketchbook. We've all bound them the same, so you should have your stick, your rubber band, your front cover, and your back cover. So for my beginners, or maybe some of our younger students who want to be involved, you are going to actually glue some foliage from outside. Like I said, our theme is to be outside as much as possible. It's beautiful, and we're going to really talk a lot about that this season. So you can either use a stick glue if you don't want a big mess, or if your child is pretty good with regular glue, liquid glue, you can use this as well. I'm going to start with stick glue. You just want to add a little bit onto the back of your leaf, and then you can think about where you want to put it. If you want to plan it all out beforehand, you can choose exactly where you want all of your leaves to be. So I put my one down. I'm going to kind of plan mine out a little bit. Hopefully the wind cooperates and doesn't blow them away. Put them down. I think I got a pretty good idea of where I want to put most of them. So I'm going to stop there and glue the back of this. It seems that the stick glue is working really well. So if you were concerned about having to use liquid glue, I think stick glue might be the way to go actually. Just glue down a couple. I also like to personalize my books. So after I'm finished putting some leaves down, I'm going to figure out a way to incorporate the title of my sketchbook. I will have that on all 3. You don't want it to be taken by somebody else, and then that way you know it's yours. Fun way of documenting. So you don't need too much glue, just enough on the stems to try and help hold it down a little bit. Then I'm going to add one more. I'm going to add this really funky leaf. I don't even know what kind of plant that one was. It just looked really cool. So that one kind of pops up. So if that's the case, you might have to hold it down and maybe count backwards from 10. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hopefully, there we go. Bubbling up a little bit. We can always touch that up. But next, we're going to go ahead and personalize it. I'm going to use blue because that's my favorite color, and I'm going to put my name on the bottom. And then maybe around my leaves, this tends to be something I like to do. So my sketchbook. So it kind of gives it a little fun, added creativeness to it. So that's it for my beginning students. For our more intermediate students, or students who work a little bit more independently, we're gonna start with a really light colored crayon. Okay, mine is like a really light teal, which is kind of convenient because we're gonna be drawing leaves. So on here, I like to say it's like magic a little bit, so you don't always see the crayon right away. So I'm gonna draw some leaves. This one is a little more visible than some other colors. So I'm gonna draw a leaf, draw my stem kind of like this, put the middle in. I'm gonna draw just a couple leaves to show some examples, kind of put these in here. Just like that. And then how about we put a big long stemmed one that has several little leaves on it, kind of like this. Kind of looks like a little flower almost. All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and write my name in the corner. However you design it, you can write your name wherever you want. I just prefer to put mine in the corner so I always know where it is. Okay, and then I'm gonna write my sketchbook on here. Maybe I'll write it around this one. So the reason why we have to do all the crayon part first is because we're going to learn a different type of resist. So what resist means is the crayon is going to repel or not soak up anything that we add to it. So we're going to be adding some tissue paper, so you'll need some water. I'm going to use a good sized paintbrush and then some tissue paper. So you lay the tissue paper down. You're not gluing it, you're just going to get it wet. And you don't want to get it soaking wet to where water's rolling off of your paper, but you want to get it to where it kind of stays. So see how that started to smooth out when I started to add water? So I'm going to lay this one down, and then you can start choosing other colors. Oop, pulled it off with my finger. That's no good. There we go. That'll happen. It is paper and it'll get stuck to your fingers if your fingers get wet. So I'm going to choose another color. That one's kind of big. If you get a big piece like this, you can just kind of rip it or cut it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Put that back. So another cool thing is when you start to layer the tissue paper, it'll start to mix the colors when you put it down on the paper. So you'll just keep doing this until you have it as colorful as you want it. I like to overlap because, like I said, you'll get some different colors, like the blue and the pink will probably make a purple, the blue and the yellow will make a green, where the pink and the yellow will make a really cool orange color. So if you notice, I'm not using a ton of water, and I kind of like drain a little bit off of my brush before I just go ahead and put it on the paper. Because what can happen is your cover can get too soggy and then it's going to get all wavy, and we don't want that. So the tricky part is letting this dry a little bit, because when you do, it should lift up the color. This one's just giving me a hard time down here. And you can leave some white spots, because another cool thing you could do is you can go in and you can add other colors to it if you want. Say you have some white, you can use some markers or some crayons or some colored pencils, and you can actually color on top of it when it's dry. So I'm gonna put my last piece right here, I think. All right, so then now you gotta let it dry, and then you'll peel off the paper at the very end. So after your tissue paper is dried, you have to peel it off, and then you can kind of see the results. Some colors work a lot better than others, and certain brands of tissue paper also work better. You can see my green and my pink and red, a little bit of blue, there's some more green there. Those worked really well. So if that's the case, not all hope is lost. You can add other things, like I said. You can do colored pencils, you can do markers. I usually, if I'm gonna do markers, like to add a little bit of dark and light together because it gives a shadow. And that's a very simple way of making your leaves look a little realistic with just using markers. So like I said, don't fret. There's still ways to fix it and make your sketchbook look great. All right, and lastly, for our advanced students, you can get a little more detailed with your drawings. So if you look at the one that I have here, I have a butterfly, some leaves that are actually kind of sketched out, because what we can do is we can go in with watercolors, which were not provided, but if you have those at home, you can use those, markers, colored pencil, crayon, really anything to add some detail. So with the watercolors, obviously, you'll need to add water, because their name. So I'm gonna add a little bit of green. So I call it waking up my paint. You get it wet, you gotta wake it up, otherwise it doesn't work. So I'm just gonna go in and add some green onto my leaves. And the cool thing about this is even though I've already added green in there, I can add other colors to give it a little bit more depth. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of blue, just to kind of make it look like it has a shadow, or if one side is a little darker than others, just to kind of bring it to life a little bit. Another option is you can use markers. I have a couple different markers right here next to me. I'm gonna paint one more leaf so you can kind of see. The more water you add, the lighter the color looks. So you can tell when you look here, I started out darker and worked my way down to like a lighter green. So if you want to do that, you can add a little bit of yellow, and the yellow green actually will make it look like it's lighter, or a little highlight on it. Just like that. So just little things like that can kind of make your leaf look like it has a dark side, a light side, bring it to life just a little bit. So for the markers, you can go in, you can outline. So say this side is a darker green, you can outline it, you can draw your lines back in if you want. If you do it when it's wet, the paint will kind of bleed it a little bit, and then it kind of almost makes it look like you're still using a type of watercolor when you're still using a marker. So for the other side, I'm gonna use this light green because I want it to be my highlight side, and it just kind of spruces it up a little bit. Kind of like that. So on here, I put my travel journal on this one, which is a different title than some of the other ones, because just because it's a sketchbook doesn't mean you only have to have it at home. You can take it with you on vacation or on road trips. You can write in them. They don't always have to be drawings. You could draw a little sketch and then write what you were thinking or where you were at. They're kind of like a nice thing to kind of collect some ideas that maybe you don't want to say out loud, almost like a little diary, but with drawings. Since we were talking about taking our journals with us and traveling places, we may have to add a few things. So one thing that's really nice that you can add, like things from your trips, you could add pieces of paper or maybe tickets to somewhere that you went, is by adding pockets. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to make a pocket. You can use any kind of paper, construction paper. I have little pieces of like cardstock here. It's still really flimsy, but it's sturdy enough that it'll hold in place. So what you need to do first is you'll get your rectangle, or you can really make it whatever shape you want. Circular, probably not so much, but any kind of square. You have to make sure that you cut the corners. Why this is important is because if your corners are overlapping, they're not really gonna stick. They're gonna wanna pop up off the page and probably fall out of your sketchbook, which would be really sad. So what I did on this one, I'm gonna show you, and then I'll actually cut one with you so that you can understand it a little bit better, is I cut the corners and then I folded my paper like so, just on the edges, because now you can kind of see it's gonna pop up a little bit, right? So my stick glue again. Liquid glue probably wouldn't be ideal for this, just because it's a little messier and it takes longer to dry, where the stick glue, you can almost take it and press into the book and it'll help hold it in place. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of glue on each of the flaps. So if you notice, it's flap side up right now. All right, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna off-center this one a little bit just because I want to. I'm gonna do this and then I'm gonna count those 10 seconds again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. And then now you have a little pocket where you can put things in there. Safe stuff. I'm going to show an example of a drawing that I did, and say I was out on a nature trail and I decided I wanted to sketch some, this is actually a succulent, but if I wanted to sketch a succulent out there, how I could preserve it in the pocket, okay? So same type of scenario, we're gonna cut the corners. So you just wanna cut them like this. Do that on both sides. They don't have to be completely even, so you don't have to fold it or anything to make sure it's exactly the same, just as long as they're close. All right, so now I have a little wonky rectangle. Wherever your corner is, right here, is where you're gonna fold your paper. So I'm gonna fold it. I'm gonna do it on this side too. So here's another corner. I'm gonna fold it. And then lastly, this one as well down here. You may have to open these flaps to kind of fold it the right way, but that's okay. And fold. So now, once again, I have my fold side up. I'm gonna add some glue. I'm gonna push it down like so. Just rub the paper, count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have my flap, and now I can preserve my drawing inside, and I don't have to worry about it getting bent, scratched, or anything, and then we can just close our journals and it's ready for traveling. And this concludes our first session of Arts in the Park. My name is Rosie, and I really hope you enjoyed making sketchbooks with me and you continue to join us the rest of our summer session.